What's something that's happened to you that sounds fake, but unfortunately isn't?
Experience 1. In 1986, my parents planned a trip to Disney in Florida. A random man tried to kidnap my half-brother by snatching him and running. He was tackled, my brother was safely returned to us, and nothing happened to the guy as he disappeared into the crowd. Fast forward to 1989, in Ohio at a pop-up circus in a field, I was given the chance to go get a popcorn. A man dressed as a clown approached me and after several long minutes of small talk grabbed me. Bystanders saw the ordeal and a random man with exquisite sideburns chased down this man who had thrown me into his pickup truck and gunned it. Mr. Sideburns and another man were able to pull him from the vehicle and stop the truck as it rolled into a parking lot and hit several parked vehicles. I was fine other than some forehead scrapes from hitting the dash. The clown was not a circus performer or associated with the circus. He was an opportunistic predator. I can't even say either of these events was the worst part of my childhood. Also, EFF clowns. Experience 2. I was riding my bike around my apartment building as a kid. Ran into some bullies from school. Now as a kid, I had a problem with shutting up. I had no idea how, so I pissed them off. So, I was riding my bike as fast as possible to get away from them. They were also on bikes, when I got something on the ground and went flying. A few things to note. 1. I was a tiny little girl like 70 pounds tops. 2. I was poor, so my bike was used, a bit rusty and most importantly, missing handlebar grips. 3. The combination of speed, my weight, and whatever I hit, launched me more up than forward. So, I hit something, the bike fell on its side, and then I fell on the bike. Felt like it knocked the wind out of me, and I knew it had to be bad because one of the bullies pedaled away as fast as possible, the other one helped me home and said that this doesn't make us friends on the way. Left our bikes where they were. I didn't care, my midsection hurt where I landed. Got home and my mom turned to greet me and practically screamed that I was bleeding. I looked down and realized that I was bleeding a lot from my stomach and fainted. I woke up at the hospital later to find out that I had landed onto a bike handle which had impaled me through my midsection about halfway through me. Missed my organs just barely and left me with a neat scar and a story no one believes until they see the scar. Experience 3. I lived in a small quiet town and my house was in a cul-de-sac, so all the neighbors knew each other, and we all got along well. One night when I was about 12 years old, I was babysitting my baby brothers, twins. It was bedtime, so we were laying in my mom's bed watching a movie to wind down. Suddenly, they both start whining that they want chocolate milk. I was super annoyed because I just wanted them to go to sleep so I could be off the clock, so to speak. Just as we walked through the doorway and out of the bedroom, I heard what sounded like firecrackers going off in the bedroom we just left. I peeked my head back in the doorway and heard a couple more. It sounded like it was coming from the closet, which was about a foot away from me at this point. I called my mom and told her what happened and that I was scared. We didn't go back in the room until she got home. Once she was home, we discovered several bullet holes throughout the bedroom and the walls, and the closet door, and one in the corner of the TV, so we called the cops. They figured out that our neighbor had been doing some target practice in his garage, and drinking, and his garage wall faced our house. So, the bullets entered my mom's bedroom through the wall, just a few inches above her bed, which had no headboard. Right where our heads had been while we were lying there watching the movie. If those little butt heads hadn't bothered me for chocolate milk at that exact moment, things could have been very different. Experience 4. My grandmother prevented the neighbor boy from kidnapping our next-door neighbor. Our house was at the bus stop. I woke up sick that morning and didn't go to school. Grandma was the neighborhood grandma and kept an eye on the kids who were at the stop every morning. She was watching the girl at the corner. She was the only one riding that morning, looked back and she was gone. He was dragging her across our backyard with a knife to her throat. My grandma ran at him screaming and throwing rocks at him while I called the cops. She won Citizen of the Year in our city. Experience 5. I have a tech company, and we are not in the best financial situation. We had a very big contract awaiting signature. Well, it won't get signed because the person responsible for the project was one of the 5 casualties from the Titan submarine. Experience 6. I, 15 at the time, was traveling in a foreign country with my sister, 26. We stayed at a local hotel. My period came and I got a little bit on the sheets the first night. Housekeeping came and cleaned. As usual, nothing was mentioned. A few days passed, and when we were checking out, they asked to see our passports again. I guess we thought they just needed to double-check their guest registry to update it. Once the passports were in his hand, the front desk person, male, got really angry with us and began yelling at us for making a mess in the hotel. At first, we had no idea what he was talking about because we are very tidy travelers. He just kept yelling that we made trouble for him. He then proceeded to ask housekeeping to bring out the evidence, and guess what? They proceeded to bring out the unwashed sheets. WTF? No idea where they had stored it. A nice young Australian couple witnessed the whole thing. The lady muttered, "It's just a few spots, can't you just wash it?" He yelled at them to stay out of it, and they fell silent. He even asked who made the mess. My sister said she did. 15-year-old me felt like I had done something criminally wrong. My sister paid him for the sheets and got our passports back so we could leave. Experience 7. Years ago, I broke my right foot. After 6 weeks in a boot, I was leaving the orthopedist office boot-free. Just me and my own 2 feet, raw dogging the ground. I was so excited to drive home now that I was out of that damn boot. And then on the way to the car, I stepped off the curb, rolled my left ankle, and broke it. Experience 8. Not me but my uncle. He was in Jamaica when his wife, who was doing fitness classes, died due to a perforated bowel from a meal at the resort, and the authorities drove him to an ATM and told him he was going to be suspect number 1 if he didn't pay them, and he'll never have his wife repatriated to the US. He complied and they took him back to the resort. Unbeknownst to him, T-Pain was also there and caught wind of the situation and worked magic with his connections to keep my uncle safe and bring my aunt home for a funeral, as well as providing his bodyguard protection to my uncle. To this day, almost 2 decades later, they will video chat on holidays like Easter to talk, and in my view that man is a saint to our family. Anytime he's in town, they'll meet backstage before one of his concerts and they'll have a big hug. One time he met his family. I will never forget the kindness this man has shown over decades. It's insane. Edit 2, yes, that is my uncle. And I want to point out that in 2007, T-Pain was 23 years old when he did this selfless act. In my opinion, that just amplifies the character he holds himself to that you see in his actions throughout his entire life. What an awesome man. Experience 9. Not mine, but a friend's story. When she was about 5 or so, she was at CVS with her dad when someone robbed the store. While the robber is pointing a gun and yelling at everyone to get on the ground, her dad, being an Asian man born in Asia, says Happy Halloween because he thought it was a costume. This happened in November. Experience 10. I was thrown off a motorcycle on the interstate when I was 22 months old. Yes, months. My parents thought I was dead because my head was ripped open, skull too, but took me to the hospital anyway. ETA, this happened in the Midwest US on an interstate. Experience 11. I was lying on the beach in the sand when I heard a soft thud next to me. I sat up and saw a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich lying next to me in the sand. Wondering where it came from, I looked up and saw to my surprise and horror, a flock of seagulls descending upon me and the sandwich one of them had just dropped. It was a mad frenzy of them fighting me and each other for the sandwich and me fighting them to get away. The whole thing was over in 5 seconds. Experience 12. I have randomly come across not one but 2 people attempting, or about to attempt self-deletion. Didn't know either of them, both at totally different locations. Both times I was just living my normal life and then suddenly I was trying to stop a self-deletion. The ambulance came and got the one. The other one, after a very long talk down, ended up taking off upon realizing I had dialed 911 so the operator could hear what was going on. Experience 13. I was born in the early 80s, and during that time they took newborns away to the nursery to be cared for away from the parents. When it was time for my mother to leave the hospital, they returned her baby to her, and before my parents left, they needed to change the baby's diaper. Well, when they removed the diaper, they saw that the baby that they had was a girl when my mother had given birth to a boy. The hospital tracked down the parents who had me and got the babies back to their rightful parents. Some crazy-ish. Experience 14. I was dragged out of a tent in my sleep by a pack of dingoes on Fraser Island in Australia. I woke up to a weird feeling at my feet and saw that they were chewing on my toes through the sleeping bag. One of them was standing on my hip/stomach, staring me in the face. Now, I'm not a fighter, but I hit him with such a punch on the side of the head, like a perfect right cross to his cute little face. He went flying sideways, which spooked all the others, about 4 or 5 of them, and, with a few kicks from my bagged-up legs, they scuttled away. I went back into the tent to find my then-girlfriend still asleep and snoring away. The next morning, I went over to our tour guide fella, a massive Aussie dude named Tony, and told him what happened, and he asked,
"Did you see which one it was?"
And funnily enough, I did. He had a yellow and blue tag in his ear. They're all tagged on the island, and I remembered because they're the Wicklow colors, where I'm from. And Tony just said,
"Oh yeah, that cunt."
I ended up punching quite a bit of wildlife in my year there, but Australia definitely started it. Experience 15. In 2012, I lifeguarded at a beach in Delaware. I was talking with a lady who was drinking a glass of wine on the beach. While telling her she was not allowed to do that, Dave Grohl walked behind me. I was/am a massive fan and knew he would vacation at this beach, but never assumed I would run into him. In the moment of being absolutely starstruck, the lady goes, "Oh, you're a fan of Dave, I see?" Barely able to talk, I said, "Yes, he is the reason I got into drumming." She then said, "Oh, he's my son, you should go say hi." I let her drink the wine and I was able to talk to my music idol for a solid 20 minutes. One of the best days of my life. Experience 16. My childhood best friend's mom passed away by drowning. My best friend then died a couple of months later after being hit by an 18-wheeler on the side of the road. Her father then died a few months later from throat cancer. Lost my entire second family in under a year due to unrelated incidents. It's been 7 years and I'm still not over it. Experience 17. You know those big fun slides you ride down on the rug/carpet thing? When I was 8, the worker giving the push accidentally stood on my carpet and I went flying down all 3 parts and bumps slid on my back and arms. Ended up blistering and bubbling all over my hands and arms. Worst skin burns of my life and almost passed out. The next day on the boardwalk, a seagull crapped on my head. Experience 18. My epidural failed during the emergency C-section. I likely had listeria. My temp was 103+, and then the monitor for baby's heartbeat went quiet type emergency. Experience 19. When I was 10 years old, several people in my neighborhood were attacked by a deranged squirrel that was missing part of its tail. One day, my dad was at work and my mom was running errands, so myself and my two other brothers, aged 14 and 7, were left home alone. I was in the kitchen and my 7-year-old brother was playing on the back porch. Suddenly, a squirrel that was missing the tip of its tail started attacking the kitchen window, about 10 feet from where my brother was playing. I ran outside to caution my younger brother, but it was too late. The squirrel had already bitten a chunk out of his finger, which was squirting blood, and was running up and down his arm while my brother screamed his head off. I grabbed this insane, bloodthirsty creature with my bare hands and chucked it into a tree. By now my older brother had come to see what was going on. I told him what had happened, and because this took place in a small town in Mississippi, he of course had full access to the family gun cabinet. He got a gun, went outside, and shot some random squirrel that was not missing the tip of its tail. I told everyone that it was not the same squirrel, but no one listened to me. The story of my brother's heroic actions went around town, and he was even written about in the town newspaper for saving the day. Absolutely no mention of me or my heroism at all.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.